Okay. So this is the beginning of Dragonsinger, the second book.
Ooh.
Chapter 1. Chaz, you have got to stop beating your utensils against your plates.
During recording?
Just in general, it drives me crazy.
I'll try.
The little queen all golden flew hissing at the sea. To stop each wave her clutch to save, she ventured bravely. As she attacked the sea in rage, a holder man came nigh. Along the sand, fishnet in hand, he saw the queen mid-sky. He stared at her in wonder, for often he'd been told that such as she could never be who hovered there bright gold. He saw her plight, and quickly he looked up the cliff he faced, and saw a cave above the wave, in which her eggs he placed. The little queen all golden upon his shoulder stood, her eyes all blue glowed of her true, undying gratitude.
Well, like the poem version?
No, just this. That's the beginning. When Manoli, daughter of Yanis Seaholder, arrived at the Harper Craft Hall, she came in style, aboard a bronze dragon. She was seated on Monarch's neck between his rider, Tegelen, and the master harper of Pern, Robinson. For one who had been told that girls could not become harpers, who had run away and actually lived holdless because she could not continue life without music, this was something of a triumphal success. Yet it was also frightening. To be sure, music would not be denied her at the Harper Hall. True, she had written some songs that the master harper had heard and liked, but they were just tunings, not anything important. And what could a girl, even one who had taught or holds youngsters their teaching songs and ballads, do at a Harper Hall from which all teaching songs originated? Especially a girl who had inadvertently impressed 9 fire lizards when everyone else on Pern would give a left arm to own just one. What had Master Robinson in mind for her to do here in the Harper Hall? She couldn't think. She was so tired. She'd had a busy, exciting day at Bend and Weir on the opposite side of the continent, where night now was well advanced. Here in Fort Hold, the sky was just darkening. "Just a few minutes more," said Robinson in her ear. She heard him laugh, because just then Bronze Monarch trumpeted a greeting to the Fort Hold watch dragon. "Hang on, Manoli. I know you must be exhausted. I'll put you in Sylvina's care the moment we land. See there?" And she followed the line of his pointing finger and saw the lighted quadrangle of buildings at the foot of the Fort Hold cliff. That's the Harper Hall. She shivered then, with fatigue, the cold of their passage between, and apprehension. Monarch was circling now, and figures were pouring out of the Harper Hall into the courtyard, waving wildly to cheer the Master Harper's return. Somehow, Manoli hadn't expected that there'd be so many people in the Harper Craft Hall. They kept well back, though their shouts of welcome didn't abate while the big bronze dragon settled in the courtyard, giving him plenty of wing room. "I've got 2 fire lizard eggs," shouted Master Robinson. Hugging the earthen pots tightly against his body, he slid from Bronze Monarch's shoulder with the ease of considerable practice in dismounting dragons. 2 fire lizard eggs," he repeated joyfully, holding the precious egg pots above his head and striding quickly to show off his prizes. "My fire lizards!" Anxiously, Manoli glanced up and about her. "Did they follow us, Tegelen? They're not lost between?" "No chance of that, Manoli," Tegelen replied, pointing to the slated roof behind them. "I asked Monarch to tell them to perch there for the time being." With infinite relief, Manoli saw the unmistakable outline of her fire lizards on the rooftop against the darkening sky. If only they don't misbehave as they did at Bendon. "They won't," Tegelen assured her easily. "You'll see to that. You've done more with your fare of fire lizards than Fnor has with his one little queen, and Fnor's a trained dragon rider." He swung his right leg over Monarch's neck ridge and dropped to the ground, raising his arms to her. "Bring your leg over. I'll steady you so you won't jar those sore feet of yours." And his hands braced her as she slid down Monarch's shoulder. "That's the girl. And here you are, safe and sound in the Harper Hall." He gestured broadly as if only he could have accomplished this mission. Manoli looked across the courtyard, where the Master Harper's tall figure and presence dominated those surrounding him. Was Sylvina one of them? Wearily, Manoli hoped that the Harper would find her quickly. The girl could put no reliance on Tegelen's glib assumption that her fire lizards would behave. They'd only just got used to being at Bend and Weir, among people who had some experience with winged antics. Don't worry so, Manoli. Just remember, said Tegelen, gripping her shoulder in awkward reassurance, every Harper on Pern has been trying to find Patyrion's lost apprentice. Because they thought that apprentice was a boy. That made no difference to Master Robinson when he asked you to come here. Times are changing, Manoli, and it'll make no difference to the others. You'll see. In a 7 day, you'll have forgotten you ever lived anywhere else. The bronze dragon rider chuckled. Great shells, girl. You've lived holdless, outrun thread, and impressed 9 fire lizards. What's to fear from Harpers? Where is Selvina? The Master Harper's voice rose above the others. There was a momentary lull, and someone was sent to the hall to find the woman. And no more answers now. You've the bones of the news. I'll flesh it out for you later. Now don't drop these egg pots, Sibel. Right now, I've got more good news. I've found Patyrion's lost apprentice. Amid explanations of surprise, Robinson broke free of the crowd and beckoned Tegelen to bring Manoli forward. For a brief second, Manoli fought the urge to turn and run, impossible as it was with her feet barely healed from trying to outrun thread, and with Tegelen's arm about her. His fingers squeezed on her shoulder as if he sensed her nervousness. There's nothing for you to fear from Harper's, he repeated in her ear as he escorted her across the court. Robinson met them halfway, beaming with pleasure as he took her right hand. He flung up his other arm to command silence. This is Manoli, daughter of Yanis Seaholder, late of Half-Circle Seahold, and Patyrion's lost apprentice. Whatever response the Harpers made was covered by an explosion of fire lizard cries from the rooftop. Fearful that the fair might wing down on the Harpers, Manoli turned, saw that their wings were indeed spread, and sternly commanded them to stay where they were. Then she had no excuse for not confronting the sea of faces, some smiling, some with mouths ajar in surprise at her fire lizards, but too many people. Yes, and those fire lizards are Manoli's, Robinson went on, his voice easily projecting above the murmurs, just as that lovely song about the fire lizard queen is Manoli's. Only it wasn't a man who saved the clutch from the sea, it was Manoli. And when no one would let her play or sing in Half-Circle Seahold after Patyrien died, she ran away to the fire lizard queen's cave and impressed 9 of the eggs before she realized what she was doing. Furthermore, and he raised his volume above the ragged cheers of approval, furthermore, she found another clutch, which provided me with 2 eggs. The second cheer was more wholehearted, reverberating in the courtyard and answered by shrill whistles from the fire lizards. Under cover of good-natured laughter at that response, Tegelen muttered, I told you so, in her ear. And where is Selvina? Asked the Harper again, a note of impatience audible. Here I am, and you ought to be ashamed of yourself, Robinson, said a woman, pushing through the ring of Harpers. Manoli had an impression of very white skin and large expressive eyes set in a broad-cheeked face framed by dark hair. Then strong but gentle hands took her from Robinson's grasp, subjecting the child to such an ordeal. No, you lot calm down. All this noise, and those poor creatures up there too scared out of their wits to come down. Haven't you any sense, Robinson? Away, the lot of you, into the hall. Carry on all night there if you've the energy, but I'm putting this child to bed. Tegelen, if you'd help me. As she upbraided everyone impartially, the woman was also making her way, with Manoli and Tegelen. Good Lord, child.
I swear I dropped it.
Through the crowd, which parted respectfully but humorously before her. It's too late to put her in with the other girls at Dunkas, said Selvina to Tegelen. We'll just bed her in one of the guest rooms for the night. Unable to see clearly in the shadows of the hall, Manoli barked her toes on the stone steps. Will you not take that fork against the glass bowl?
I will try my hardest.
All right. Manoli barked her toes on the stone steps, cried out involuntarily at the pain, and grabbed at the supporting hands. What happened, child? Asked Selvina, her voice kind and anxious. My toes. My feet. Manoli choked back tears at that the unexpected pain had brought to her eyes. Selvina mustn't think her a coward. Here, I'll carry her, said Tegelen, and swung Manoli up into his arms before she could protest. Just lead the way, Selvina. That dratted Robinson, Selvina said. He can go on all day and night without sleep, but forgets that others, No, it's not his fault. He's done so much for me, Manoli began. Ha! He's deeply in your debt, Manoli, said the dragon rider with a cryptic laugh. You'll have to have your healer see to her feet, Sylvina. Tegelen continued as he carried Manoli up the broad flight of stairs that led from the main entrance of the hall. That's how he found her. She was trying to outrun the leading edge of Threadfall. She was? Sylvina stared over her shoulder at Manoli, her green eyes wide with respectful astonishment. She nearly did, too. Ran her feet raw. One of my wingmen saw her and brought her back to Bend and Weir. In this room, Tegelen, the bed's on the left-hand side. I'll just open the glow baskets. I see it. And Tegelen deposited her gently in the bed.
What's the glow basket?
It's what they get light from. I'll get the shutters, Sylvina, and let those fire lizards of hers in here before they do get into trouble. Manoli had let herself sink into the thick mattress of sweet rushes. Now she loosened the thong holding the small bundle of belongings to her back, but she hadn't the energy to reach for the sleeping fur folded at the foot of the bedroll. As soon as Tegelen had the second shutter open, she called her friends in. I've heard so much about the fire lizard, Sylvina was saying, and had only the glimpse of Lord Grohy's little queen that... Gracious goodness! At Sylvina's startled remark, Manoli struggled out of the thick mattress to see the fire lizards dipping and wheeling about the woman. How many did you say you have, Manoli? There are only 9, replied Tegelen, laughing at Sylvina's confusion. She was twisting about, trying to get a good look at one or another of the gyrating creatures. Manoli told them to settle down quickly and behave. Rocky and Diver landed on the table near the wall, while the more daring Beauty took up her accustomed perch on Manoli's shoulder. The others came to rest on the window ledges, their jeweled eyes whirling with the orange of uncertainty and suspicion. Why, they're the loveliest creatures I've ever seen, said Sylvina, peering intently at the 2 bronzes on the table. Rocky chirped back, recognizing that remarks were being made about him. He flipped his wings neatly to his back and cocked his head at Sylvina. And a good evening to you, young bronze fire lizard. That bold fellow is Rocky, said Tegelen, if I remember correctly, and the other bronze is Diver. Right, Manoli? She nodded, relieved in her weariness that Tegelen was ready to speak for her. The greens are aunties 1 and 2, and the pair began to chatter so like old women that Sylvina laughed. The little blue is uncle, but I haven't got the 3 browns sorted out. And now he turned inquiringly to Manoli.
Why is the blue-green uncle?
The blue is uncle.
Oh, I thought it said green uncle.
They're lazy bones.
Also, can I get ice cream?
Yep, go ahead. They're lazy bones, mimic, and brownie, Manoli said, pointing at each in turn. And this is Beauty, Sylvina. You can hear me in the kitchen. Go.
No, I know the up of my leg.
Oh, okay.
Again.
Oh, poor baby. Manoli spoke the woman's name shyly because she didn't know her title or rank in the Harper Hall. And a beauty she is, too, just like a miniature queen dragon, and just as proud, I see. Then Sylvina gave Manoli a hopeful look. By any chance, will one of Robinton's eggs hatch a queen? I hope so. I really do, said Manoli fervently, but it's not easy with fire lizard eggs to tell which is the queen. I'm sure he'll be just as thrilled no matter what the color. And speaking of queens, Tegelen, and Sylvina turned to the dragon rider, do please tell me, did Brecky re-impress the new queen dragon at your hatching today? We've been so worried about her hair since her queen was killed. No, Brecky didn't re-impress, and Tegelen smiled quickly to reassure Sylvina. Her fire lizard wouldn't let her.
Hey, Mom.
No?
I need help getting ice cream.
Well, then you need to wait.
Also, I can barely hear you from the kitchen.
Okay, then sit down and wait. Yes, you should have seen it, Sylvina. That little bronze midget flew at the queen dragon, scolding like a wary hen. Wouldn't let Brecky near the new queen. But she snapped out of that depression, and she'll be all right now, Fnor says. And it was little Bird who pulled the trick. Well, that really is interesting. Sylvina regarded the 2 bronzes with thoughtful respect. So they've a full set of wits. They seem to, Tegelen went on. Fnor uses his little queen Grawl to send messages to the other dragon weirs. Of course, and Tegelen chuckled disparagingly, she doesn't always return as promptly as she goes. Manoli's trained hers better, you'll see. The dragon rider had been edging towards the door and now gave a huge yawn. Sorry. I'm the one who should apologize, replied Sylvina, indulging my curiosity when you 2 are all but asleep. Get along with you now, Tegelen, and my thanks for your help with Manoli. Good luck now, Manoli. I know you'll sleep well, said Tegelen, with a jaunty wink of farewell. He was out the door, his boot heels clicking on the stone floor before she could thank him. Now, let's just have a quick look at these feet you ran ragged. Sylvina gently tugged off Manoli's slippers. They're all but healed. Minora's clever with her nursing, but we'll have Master Oldive look at you tomorrow. Now what's this? My things. I don't have much. Here, you two watch that and keep out of mischief, Sylvina said, putting the bundle on the table between Rocky and Diver. Now slip off your skirt, Manoli, and settle down. A good long sleep, that's what you need. Your eyes are burned holes in your head. I'm all right, really. To be sure you are, now you're here. Living in a cave, did Gellin say, with every Harper on Pern looking for you in holds and craft halls. Sylvina deftly tugged at skirt tapes, just like old Petirian to forget to mention you being a girl. I don't think he forgot, Manoli said slowly, thinking of her father and mother and their opposition to her playing. He told me girls can't be Harpers. Sylvina gave her a long, hard look. Maybe under another Master Harper, or in the old days, but surely Petirian knew his own son well enough to... Petirian was Master Robinton's father? Did he never tell you that? Sylvina paused as she was spreading the sleeping fur over Manoli. The old stubborn fool, determined not to advance himself because his son was elected Master Harper, and then picking a place halfway to nowhere. I beg your pardon, Manoli. Half Circle Seahold is halfway to nowhere. Not if Petirian found you there, said Sylvina, recovering her brisk tone, and sponsored you to this craft. Now that's enough talking, she added, closing the glow basket. I'll leave the shutters open, but you sleep yourself out, you hear me? Manoli rumbled a reply, her eyes closing despite her effort to remain politely awake while Sylvina was in the room. She let out a soft sigh as the door banged shut softly. Beauty immediately curled up by Manoli's ear, and the girl felt other small, hard bodies making themselves comfortable against her. She composed herself for sleep, aware now of the dull throbbing in her feet and the aching of her banged toes. She was warm. She was comfortable. She was so tired. The bag that enclosed the thick rushes was stout enough to keep stray edges from digging into her flesh, but she couldn't sleep. She also couldn't move because while her mind turned over all the day's incredible events, her body wasn't hers to command, but in some nether region of unresponsiveness. She was conscious of the spicy odor of beauty, of the dry, sweet scent of the rushes, the earthy smell of wet fields borne in by the night wind, accented occasionally by the touch of acrid blackstone smoke. Spring was not advanced enough to dispense with evening fires. Strange not to have the smell of sea in her nostrils, Manoli thought, for sea and fish odors had dominated all but the last 7 days of her 15 turns. How pleasant to realize that she had done with the sea and fish forever. She'd never have to gut another packtail in her life or risk another infected cut. She couldn't use her injured hand as much as she wanted to yet, but she would. Nothing was impossible. Not if she could get to the Harper Hall in spite of all the odds against it. And she'd play guitar again, and harp. Minora had assured her she'd use the fingers properly in time, and her feet were healing. It amused Manoli now to think she'd had the temerity to try to outrun the leading edge of threadfall. Running had done more than save her skin from thread scoring. It had brought her to Bend and Weir, to the attention of the Master Harper of Pern, and to the start of a completely new life. And her dear old friend Petirian had been Master Robinton's father? She'd known the old Harper had been a good musician, but it had never occurred to her before to wonder why he'd been sent to Half Circle Seahold, where only she had profited from his ability as a teacher. If only her father, Yanis, had let her play guitar when the new Harper first arrived, but they'd been so afraid that she'd disgrace the Seahold. Well, she hadn't, and she wouldn't. One day her father, and yes, her mother too, would realize that Manoli was no disgrace to the hold of her birth. Manoli drifted on thoughts of triumph until sound invaded her reflections. Male voices, laughing and rumbling in conversation, carried on the clear night air. The voices of Harpers, tenor, bass, and baritone, in amused, argumentative, cajoling tones, and one querulous, sort of quavery, older, whiny voice. She didn't like that one. Another, velvet, soft, light baritone rose above the cranky tenor, soothing. Then the Master Harper's deeper baritone dominated and silenced the others. Though she couldn't understand what he was saying, his voice lulled her to sleep. The end.